We're ready to call the meeting to order. Okay. Ask for approval of our agenda. Any comments? Is there a motion?
Yes, I vote
Second,
second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Approved. On to the minutes. Take a chance to look through them.
Yeah. Was Monday the 15th? For our next scheduled meetings, was that to be at 5 or 7?
The next one is on April 8th
Right.
at 7, and the one on April 15th, if necessary, is at 5 o'clock.
Yeah, but so it is 5. I had mine.
Yeah, but I have a
6, 7.
conflict, unfortunately. My husband already bought tickets for something on the 15th that I didn't have on my calendar when I was sick.
Okay,
So I can't do that. In
Alright.
minutes.
So what I would say is the minutes are reflective of what was discussed at the last meeting, and so the approval is not that.
Oh,
we
okay.
can do the date, but that was what was
So-
agreed upon at that
Okay.
meeting.
so we can bring that up later.
Yes.
Okay, no
Yeah.
problem. You're right.
Okay.
I get that. The thing we said here is that we decided that the commission, decided at that time if the commission would like to explore the option of using an outside consultant or not. Motion passed unanimously, but it doesn't say what the motion was. The motion passed unanimously to not use an outside consultant, right? It says the bottom of the first page.
Yeah, so we're gonna review the data that we have today, and after we've reviewed that, we'll decide whether we need to have an outside
Oh,
consultant
I didn't realize that.
or not.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I wasn't quite there, I guess, on Monday. Last Monday.
You were a little sick.
For some reason, I thought we passed that we wouldn't, but, okay, cool.
Yeah, we have not said that we want
Okay,
to.
okay, that's what I didn't understand. Good, yeah. I may ask questions that were resolved, but, no,
Okay.
I was quite,
It's okay.
probably should have canceled that day, but I just knew how hard it was to do a
Yeah.
meeting. Okay, well then that's fine, then I can understand that.
So,
A motion to accept the minutes, is that what you need?
Hmm.
So made.
second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Passes. We have an opportunity for public comment. Do we have anyone online?
No, it does not look like it.
Okay. Moving on, then we have old business. First is letter requesting an extension of our deadline to the city council, which is in our packet.
Oh.
This will go to the packet that gets distributed for March 28th meeting.
Yes, and our deputy clerk or city clerk, Matt, would have that all put together tomorrow is when he starts putting the agenda together. So that way, just in case there are anything on here that you're like, oh, wait. Do that. This was just more of a, we got this done, this is what we had talked about. Your chair has signed it, so it is ready for.
Okay,
Okay.
now on to the topic of our business, compensation survey results.
Yes, so what you will see in front of you after our conversation, I took the data that we had started with from the 2003 AWC salary survey and then emailed each of the cities to find out a couple of the follow-up questions that we had. For example, when they were last reviewed and maybe last updated. What you will see as well is in gray, I added Kenmore, Bothell, and Shoreline as a just kind of a comparable, but not necessarily that they're part of the comparable list. However, unless through conversation, you'd like to include them. I did put the average in there with Kenmore, Bothell, and Shoreline in case that's helpful. Most of it, I put a little yes if verified because that's who responded. The ones I don't have the yes next to are ones I didn't get a response from yet. Kenmore is a yes, I'm sorry, that just came in, not too long ago, so under the mayor one, that should say yes for city of Kenmore.
Okay.
So what you'll see here is, most of the places, if you'd like to look at maybe starting with the mayor one, does that sound like a good plan?
That'd be great.
So the total average without the city of Lake Forest Park and the three that we don't normally have in our comparable group came out to that monthly of 2,600. You'll see that most of the places do not have benefits available to their mayor. We do at the equivalent of the halftime FTE, so meaning he can contribute into the plan and pay we cover the employee and then he can pay for 90%, or I'm sorry, 10% for the dependent. If you look up above, you'll see most of the places don't have benefits. However, you will see under was it that had it? Kenmore had it at one point. Last review. Oh, no benefits.
City of Snohomish.
Yes, thank you. Snohomish is the one that does have benefits. Most of the places did let me know when they had reviewed or planned to review next. And I did get a couple examples that they had shared with me that I have saved that we can bring up and you can see what their example recommendation looked like. It looked like some people did it with their meeting minutes and then they gave the meeting minutes to the council. Others did a resolution and one of them was just looked like a letter. So I do have those in case you want to. If you don't want to look at it, that's fine as well. I just wanted to at least give some examples. A couple of them did talk about a salary schedule, when it might be like a COLA or something, but it wasn't consistent throughout them. So I don't know if you wanted to further discuss as a group what that looked like, or I want to leave that there to you, but that's the info that we got for that.
Okay.
So what comparables are you using when you said you averaged the mayor's salary? Are you looking at just the cities that are near our population?
Yes, so
Which ones?
we're all the ones in white.
Oh,
They're,
okay,
they're all averaged
Yeah.
out.
you're calling those comparables, okay.
Yeah.
Even the
She
city
al-
of Motley
She
Terrace.
only included these just so that
Right.
we saw what it was like to those cities next to us
Right, no, I got
that
that.
don't.
But I didn't realize we would compare like Motley Terrace with a much higher.
Yeah, so the reason for that is these are the same cities that we've used for our non-represented and represented positions. So use the same ones. We look at kind of that 50% up, 50% down from your white position. So you'll see that kind of works out to about 4 higher than us and 4 lower than us on here, and then 1 very close. In terms of a comparable population group or sales tax revenue. And we're looking on the I-5 corridor.
So it's sales tax revenue. Then
Yes.
explain why that would be used as opposed to property tax. And I was thinking it was gonna be property tax and sales tax.
I
So-
could include that in there. The sales tax revenue is where the funding for probably what you're getting for the council and salaries is coming from.
Oh,
And so we don't have, for example, as high of sales tax revenue because,
We don't have the
We don't
commercial
have
rates.
businesses.
Yeah. and that makes a large impact on our budget overall.
Okay,
Okay,
but that's directly where the council and mayor's salary come from, sales tax revenue?
Yes, and I can confirm that, because there's a cap on what you can do on the property assessed values and how much you can. So really the sales tax revenue is gonna be a significant driver in the funding for the city in general.
Makes sense. Okay. Ooh, yeah. I know other cities, I've been looking at some of the reports online that have been more extensive than maybe what you had just mentioned. And most of them go beyond they go beyond just the NR cities, they take those, but then they also look at direct populations. Even if they're not on the corridor, they went out of their way to find direct examples of population numbers, so.
Yeah, do you know which areas those are in? Cause if they're like, if they don't have someone close, they might need to go out far. I don't,
What areas that,
So-
that population,
if you're looking at a city, do you know?
well,
which-
in that world population demographic thing, I sent you, there were cities that were. I mean, like, you know, they're further away, Gig Harbor and that, but the salary bases were close. I mean, we're like at 174 and they were at 147 or something, so. So, you know, I don't know what the other cities did exactly. I didn't even analyze those reports that close, but
Yeah.
there is that demographic thing that I sent you that shows all those different cities in there.
And did you see, in response to that, I had sent what the comp plan looks at, and they're in the process of updating that, but it's not ready yet.
Right, but we do have the census information that's online that is up to date.
Yeah,
So.
Yeah.
Are we not allowed to use that?
oh, no, you,
Okay.
however you guys direct,
Okay.
I'm just.
No,
uh,
I know.
However
that's-
you would like to do it.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I
Yeah,
just didn't.
sorry, I
there's
wasn't quite
a rule
understanding the-
Against using outside information. that's all.
No, however is gonna be helpful to make your recommendation and
Okay.
go for it. I just provide this and I just, in terms of the comparables, I'm starting from what we use for reference with our cities. Current positions, which I think, is a consideration as you look at comp philosophy as an organization to make sure that we're also comparing similar because, larger impacts to our positions in general, that's all, that's it. If you want more, absolutely.
Yeah,
let
yeah,
me
yeah.
know.
Well, I'm just, like I said, especially if we decide not to use a consultant, what I did was looked at some of the cities that did use a consultant.
Yeah,
And see what they did, and you know, it's pretty comprehensive. They even had the lawyers come in and talk about diversity and you know, equity policies and things
Mhm.
like that, so. It's kind of interesting, so.
So one of the things that we'd asked for was the last date that City of Lake Forest Park was increased. Were you able to?
oh,
find those?
no, that, I don't, sorry,
Okay.
that was
Because
one that
to me, that's pretty,
yeah. Last updated,
Cause I had
it'd probably be 5 years ago.
5 years
It
ago
probably,
now.
when they did the review, I don't know if they had updates beyond there, cause they can make a recommendation and say like, each year I want you to do. An increase of whatever it is, I just don't know, so I'm sorry,
Yeah,
I'll have
no,
to get
that's
that
fine.
in.
Oh, that's okay. We've just got a lot of different dates for people. Matt told me it was 2003 originally. And then I think at the meeting, he said it was 2013.
and
So I don't know if people just
I
don't
haven't
know
figured out
and
the-
don't wanna
Well,
say.
right, and I'm saying like when the
What?
code is updated versus when a recommendation is updated
Right.
versus does
Right.
the recommendation talk about 5 years? Then each year you can do a certain percentage. So you can
Right.
make a recommendation for an ongoing increase or something, or not an increase.
Right. So the code was
So that-
updated 5 years ago.
Yeah,
But their salaries weren't necessarily.
and it could have been determined though that
Right.
they didn't need to do an increase at the time. I don't,
Yeah.
I.
and that's what we need to know, I think.
Yeah.
I
so-
think it's good to know too.
So
I will do that. I'm sorry, I didn't.
The Everett Herald had something that ran in 2008 stating what the City of Lake Forest Park officials would be paid. And in 2008, according to that article, and I know the press isn't always right, but 500 a month for council members and 2,500 for the mayor. And so
And that was Seattle.
that was Everett
Okay.
Herald is where that ran. But that was 2008, and so we clearly had an increase since then, because we're at 633,000, right?
So you think 2008 we had an increase?
That's according to the paper. That's something I found.
About Lake Forest.
Yeah,
In particular, interesting.
yeah, I just did a search. I mean,
Yeah,
this
yeah,
was
yeah.
Before we even started.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's important to understand.
And without knowing, it would seem reasonable that when the code was updated, council members got $100 increase and the mayor got a $500.
But then I thought that there was always supposed to be a committee that was formed, right, or commission, I should say.
There must have been a commission that
Yeah.
proposed the
Yeah,
code
the schedule,
amendment, the
whatever that
schedule. Right.
Yeah, so. Because, I mean, just looking at this first blush, if we take your averages, our mayor's already paid more than their counterpart, on average. If we,
and it could be that you decide that you're at market. I think, that's part of the question. Yes, it's good to know when someone last had an update. I just emailed the finance director to see if she could tell us what we're here.
yeah,
Yeah, no,
But the question, I think, in the here and now has to be, a little bit about market now, and are we at market?
right,
So this is what your market average has right now, you know, based on what we can see in front of us. And so is that something that you feel like, great, we're right in line where we need to be, and however we did the schedule before, we have been at pace and we have accurately, correctly, put together a schedule that reflects market. And here you see, we're a little bit above market.
but again, to your point, is when was the last time any of these people reviewed, right?
So I do have that on the side, just so
Yeah,
you can
yeah.
see, but yes,
Yeah,
and there's a couple people that will be doing it around the same time. Mount Lake Terrace, they said that their update is annually through this year, and then they will do the salary survey, so they do the salary schedule for them. As you know, Bothell, from Matt's comments last time, are working on an RFP right now to get a salary survey done. Sumner is planning on theirs happening in April. And then Snoqualmie is doing, they did it through 24, so they did a COLA in 24. The other ones, I don't know what they're
yeah,
planning.
that's
to
fine,
do.
yeah.
but we really only have one that matches us, the city of Newcastle.
What do you mean by match?
Well, in terms of population and sales tax revenue,
Yep, and they're only paid 600.
500.
City of Newcastle for the mayor, is that what we're looking?
Oh,
at?
I'm sorry. I was looking at council members. You're right, we're on there. What are they paying on the
They
mayor?
pay 600.
Wow. So our mayor's
Yeah,
getting paid
with-
quite a
with
bit more,
benefits.
With benefits.
Yeah, so it's
Ours
a-
is with benefits,
yeah.
yeah. The mayor's being paid 30,000.
Well, I think what's kind of
Oh,
tricky about this
interesting.
is
No.
that trying to look at what is market, but also what is required of our members right now based on where we are in this corridor and the just maybe the issues that we have versus maybe in Newcastle. That's
Well, that
complexity.
So,
So,
yeah, that comes
Yeah.
to one suggestion from my reading of what
uh-huh.
some other cities did, Redmond, Issaquah, Kirkland. I think were the three that I found online. They did surveys, some of them did interviews, with the council members, but I'm wondering about how you guys feel about a written survey, anonymous survey about how many hours are you spending? How much, money or are you spending outside of your,
Did you see, did I send you the policy about the travel?
Yeah, they're
Okay.
reimbursed.
yeah, it can be
Okay.
reimbursed.
Yeah.
Thank you, sorry.
that's up to
Yeah.
them.
Another week.
Whether they know that or
No,
not is,
But the
No, I think they do,
individuals,
because they're like a DC this week.
Yeah.
and-
right,
Sure.
but it might not be bad. I drafted some questions. I'm having a problem with my internet.
So I think, like I said, the complexities are something that to be considered,
Did
but
you see the LFP?
Oh, that's what it is. Good. Okay.
the complexities of what we're facing. But then I stand around and I think, how soon, I mean, because we seem to spend, there's been a lot of energy surrounding the bus lanes and what's happening with this property, but some of that are those short-term issues? I mean, what's the lead time on when those decisions
Now we
get
hear it.
made, right?
Now we hear it's gone to 2030 or 20.
Okay.
transportation's gonna be, front and center for like every year. It sounds like.
Into the
Yeah.
foreseeable future.
Yeah.
Okay, so there is no,
So
at
there's,
some point they have to fish or cut bait, I would think, on some of these issues.
But with our sales tax base being small, how you can get by on a 1% property tax increase really is the
That's been,
I mean,
for a while.
yeah, but that's. And so while. Public service is. Volunteer, but it's really becomes a matter of. You know, what does it take to get the quality of individuals to run for office and serve in office? And that's where our value of a survey would probably be good to just. Get their,
Take on it, where their heads are. And, you know, they also have to, also, there's a lot of pressure to attend fundraisers and community events. You know, they're always being asked to attend the annual breakfast at the Commons and things like that, Rotary. There's a lot of pressure for,
yeah, you have to be
Yeah.
available when the community asks you to.
well, it's not only available, but the Rotary, as you know, is not cheap. So, and a lot of our council members have joined that, so there's that. Along with, right, what is their attitude, how many hours do they spend on their preparation for the meetings? I think it'll be interesting to see, to me, and, you know, do they use the health benefit package?
Well, mayor would be the only one that has that.
It's funny in the nonprofit world with filling out a 990, you have to report. What everybody spent, how much time your volunteers spend in the organization.
Yeah, and one of the questions was, you know, why did you run? What was your motivation for that? You might wanna consider some questions. You know, a lot of them, are part of another group they serve on. How many hours are they doing that? I mean, it would just be, I think, good to see the whole picture.
But I don't think
Whether
that
we-
we can, I'm sorry, but to ask what they're doing with other groups unless, I mean, unless you're talking, I guess you're talking Rotary then maybe, but if
Well,
they're a Mountaineers Club, it's not.
No,
Yeah,
no,
okay.
they
I just
all,
wanna make sure I
no,
understand what
no,
you were
no,
asking
they all,
about.
it's.
For example, we ask our council member to be representative of King County Regional Homeless Authority.
Right, there's somebody that sits on the
Yeah.
various groups, see, what is it called, see something. I don't remember, I can't even remember the meetings at least.
And would, just to educate me, would council members from other cities have the same expectations?
Yeah.
Or is Lake Forest Park different?
No, I think
Okay.
a lot of them do sit on different groups, and they report that back, what's
Yeah.
going on.
Yeah.
At the council meeting.
So
Part of
our,
the report.
our structure is
So-
so different than probably the majority of.
I wouldn't think, but
Yeah.
I can't tell you that
Yeah.
for certain, but I would think that all of them are involved in some aspects of different regional groups. Because it's important to know what's going on. So, I just feel it's good to, especially if you don't increase their salaries, because we feel they're at market. I still think it would be good to know what's in their heads.
Okay, so
So that we could address that and.
we're recommending doing a survey of our council members.
I'm recommending, I don't know how you all feel.
How do we go about drafting that?
I could take a shot. I mean, I already started doing some. Just because I was watching TV one day. To have some, see how it sounds.
And is there someone you would like to review our draft before we?
That's up to your group, so if you want the group to evaluate your questions, then we should do that at a meeting together. If your decision is that Donna wants to do a draft of the questions and then bring it to the group for review and feedback. You can do that, or you can send it out
Can I
as a
send it?
draft, but
Okay.
individually respond back to Donna with feedback
Okay.
that she can collect, or. Yeah, no, that, the same will send it to me and then I send it to you, but as long as you're not all sending it back as a
Yeah.
group, just send your individual responses back to Donna only. So that together, though, you should come together and have a decision about if you approve the survey. And
When is our next meeting?
I'm happy
Is there
to
another comment?
we can put it together in like a survey monkey or something, if you like me to do that, I can
Okay,
do that
that'd be
part of
great.
it.
You have time to do
After,
that?
I don't, that part will be easy as long as you guys don't mind doing the questions.
Yeah.
But once you have an idea of what you want
Okay.
it to look like, then I can put that into
Yeah,
a survey monkey.
Because
if
for us,
you
the
like.
mechanics would be hard.
Yeah,
Or-
yeah.
Survey Monkey makes it easy.
So,
And would you send it out to the,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
could send them
I could
out, it
send
isn't
them-
anonymous.
I'll send it, if I send it as a web link, then it'll be anonymous back.
Right,
There,
that's what I was hoping.
and how will we use this again? Tell me, how will it influence? What is it that we're looking for? And, you find out exactly how much effort that they're spending, but. I mean, does that influence if we're already at market, I guess? I don't know. Because, and let me ask you, because our next meeting is the public meeting, and so we need to have the survey done and finalized and back to us before we go into.
Before April 8th.
And we have to have another meeting before we get
Well,
go
that
into
should-
public comment,
So
so,
that should,
well, I think we have to find a date before we.
no, I mean, which I don't think it would be that big a problem to have the survey completed and out
Okay,
within a short period of time.
but then don't we have to meet?
But you do have asked a good question about, but,
Is it,
I guess I don't wanna go into it predisposed at this point. I mean, what's the purpose if we have more meetings if we already
Well,
think they're at
as
market?
we're.
well, and I
as-
don't, I'm
as we're
not saying
looking
I
to
don't, I'm just
evaluate,
saying,
We don't have the same answers about other cities.
Right,
But what it does provide is a benchmark for future salary commissions. This is what our council has said for commitment.
commitment, okay,
right.
And so we're really about
Okay, I like that.
compensating based on commitment is really, that's
Mhm.
all we have to go on.
Right. Be interesting to see what hours some people spend versus others. I
Right,
mean,
yeah.
not individually, but just,
how they, what
anonymously.
their
but what-
view of their
What
their
their view of
commitment
their
is, yeah,
commitment
absolutely,
is. Yeah,
I get that,
yeah,
I just
yeah, yeah.
wanted to.
And the other thing
flesh
is
it out
that
more.
the racial diversity on the council, that came up because I put that in my application that I was interested in, not only racial, but lower income people coming on board. That doesn't mean you're not smart because you're a social worker or something. And a couple council members, were interested in that subject. I mean, Tracy Pertani is our first non-white council member in the history. So, and while we're mostly a white community, we need to do something to draw people in the future. One of the things that one of the cities did that I thought was interesting is they offered a stipend, an extra stipend for those people that were at a lower income, certain base, like 80% of the AMI or something.
Uh-huh.
And I thought that was kind of curious thing to think about, because I was trying to figure out, well, how do you make it more just? We have a lot of high earners in Lake Forest Park that would need.
No, and that's not uncommon in nonprofits wanting to have more diversity inclusion on their boards to do that similar sort of thing.
Okay.
Time being everybody's most precious commodity.
Right, right. So that was another question, how they feel about diversity on the council. I know a couple of them mentioned it in the meeting.
Okay, so let's go with the idea. I know we have a voter on it, that if we're gonna do a survey, it's gotta be written and out, and the Survey Monkey sounds great. But then when do we review it? How do we have to look at our calendars to shift where everything is going. Because I'm gone next week.
Right.
I'm
Oh, you
Monday
are,
through
okay.
Wednesday out.
Okay.
And I think you are headed out of town too, aren't you?
On the
At
20th.
Yeah, the end of next week. And then you're gone the week of April 1st. Is that what I'm remembering?
yeah, at least the first and the third.
Uh-huh. And our public meeting is, at this point, we penciled it in for the 8th. And now we know we have to move.
So if we want this, there's no reason we can't adjust our schedule so that we have time to do our work.
Okay,
So if we don't meet on April 8th,
as a public meeting, but maybe we meet.
maybe we meet.
Yeah.
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 Well, they're all public meetings.
Right.
Well, but public
It's-
comment, I'm sorry.
Public comment
We
period.
wanna, we
hearing,
wanna
yeah.
present,
Public hearing.
our proposal so that the public can then.
Yeah.
Give us input.
Okay, so then we would go, so we'd slide our public comment meeting from the 8th to something else, and 15th is.
And when we go, let's, on the 8th, because we were gonna do the public hearing and we're having it at 7 o'clock for that reason, so that people could attend. Do we wanna up that time during the day so that Shannon doesn't have to stay too late?
I will do whatever we need to do.
No, I know, but
So,
I'm just throwing it out there.
no, I
We
really
wanna.
I appreciate
do
that.
earlier.
Well, having you stay longer for. If we can meet earlier, so it stays within your workday.
Sure, that, I mean, yeah, that sounds great. Earlier works for everyone. We can, plan on that. I don't know if you wanted to do. Remember, someone had a conflict, no, Tuesdays are conflicts, like 4, 5, 6, what would you
The
guys
8th
like
is
to
totally
do?
open for me.
Okay,
Yeah, when those tickets are, is it the 8th or the 15th?
We said 15th.
That's what I thought, but. And I was so messed up that weekend. With this week,
I guess we need to wait.
I gotta call him. I'm
Okay,
sorry
good. No,
on
good.
that.
It's
I
good
just
to be-
wanna, because I put it on the 8th and I thought it was the 15th, so like I said, I haven't been all there.
And then what dates don't work because of council or city business? There's always
well, Thursdays
Thursdays are down.
are seeming to be.
So Thursday would be important.
Yeah, I'm gonna see if I can pull up the calendar.
Perfect.
So it's like
The 11th.
the next one coming up. Sure. 4th, 9th, 11, 18, 22nd.
4/9/11, 4/9/11.
Yeah,
And
uh,
the 20,
4, 9, 11, 18, 22. 23 is the park and rec board meeting, and 25 is the next council meeting, all for April.
Survey results.
And then while we were talking, the finance director told me it's been at least 5 years. It hasn't been updated since she's been here, and I'm waiting to see if that will tell me something right now to look.
okay.
Oh, it is the 8th.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can't be the 8th.
If we come early, the concert's not till 7:30.
So if we met at
So
4
we met
o'clock,
4.
4,
Yeah,
So are you comfortable with
Yeah,
that?
I'm comfortable with that,
Okay.
yeah,
Be sweet.
yeah.
so we'll
thank you.
change that and making a note that it's no longer a public hearing, and we'll
Yeah.
say 4 PM.
Excellent.
And so the 15th could become your public hearing.
Yes. Thank you, guys. Fine.
So would someone like to make a motion and everything on all of these things that we've talked about at some point before? I want to make sure I capture this formally.
So would you like me to make a summary and then you two can make the motion?
That's a great
Sure.
idea.
So the salary commission, having looked at the data provided in the AWB salary survey, has decided that it wants to conduct a survey of the council to establish how many hours work and commitments they have related to their position. So we'll do that by survey month in the council and meet on the 8th to see what information that tells us in addition to the tax revenue and population data provided from the survey.
So moved.
And I want to make sure I wrote that down all right. So the survey is going to be, though, put together first, though.
But I'll do a draft, yes,
Donna, how
and
you
the
will
review.
produce a draft. Will comment, the other council, commission members will comment. And the work product will be sent to Shannon. For an anonymous link sent from Survey Monkey. With an explanation of why we want it.
Yes, and I'll get something maybe drafted from one of you then about that.
I'll do
This
that.
is what we're looking for.
Yes,
Thank you. And for your survey, you said you want it just to be about the number of hours council works, or are we specifying further at the moment?
Yeah, it'll be.
yeah, what other commitments they feel they need to attend to for the city
Because they're council.
because of council members.
As well as maybe some other editors or editors, the right word.
Do we
but-
need to put, because you, I mean, you
Do we need to
draft and
specify?
think-
Yeah.
I only asked because we, the motion included that we were only looking at the summary of number of hours council spends. So
Oh.
that is
Oh,
only why
let's
I
not-
brought that.
Yeah,
up.
let's,
I got
maybe we should be not specific.
Right,
A
We're
survey,
gonna survey, anonymous survey of the city council.
Okay,
Uh,
to assess
Specific.
maybe their responsibilities. There was something, I don't know, commitment of, not commitment.
Yeah,
of-
yeah,
Yeah. To assess here,
Yeah.
individual response, I'm just searching for the right way to say it instead of redoing it.
Is that is it CU?
Yes. C
Uh-huh.
is anything that's underlined is the
Yeah.
capital.
I thought I
See
said-
you at
Capital C,
Elapigas.
Small
Yes.
U.
Yeah.
Survey the perspectives of their role
there you go.
Yep,
on the
perspectives.
council.
I like that. Perspectives, that gives me some broader.
Yeah.
Nice.
And Donna, I just want to say thank you for the work that you did prior to this and going and looking and thinking this through and
Oh, sure.
providing
yeah,
us an option. Yeah, I
I've
like that.
never done it, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's some things online that's fine too, because I can't send it to you all, I guess.
You could.
I could send it to you.
Mhm. And then
Okay.
just, it's just the responses in making decisions. That's where we get into the public meeting part
Okay.
of it, is when we're starting to, what do you think about this? And should we do this? And those
Okay.
are decision type of process.
Okay.
That we should.
So I can send you those and she can send them out.
Okay,
Things I
that'd be
found.
great. Yeah, this would be helpful to you as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Really,
And in our next public meeting, we'll
more,
provide edits and then push it out
provide edits for what?
of the survey. Does the survey go out?
Well, oh, that's right, we can't approve the survey until we're all together. Just realized that,
I forgot.
I forgot about that too, so
Which
that,
means on the eighth.
Which mean-
Is once we close our meeting, Shannon can push the go button. And we would have a week to get those results back.
So then the public meeting can't be the 15th, because we need time
Oh.
to assess what it is that we've discovered and how it may influence our recommendation, and we need a recommendation, don't we, for the public, the public comment.
You would want to present it to the public.
Yeah.
As this is having done this work, this is our recommendation, so we're now asking you to give us input.
It's a good thing we're asking for May 31st, I think.
well, yeah,
Yeah,
That's,
exactly.
we gave
Well,
ourselves
yeah.
lots of time, and.
Yeah, it's the first time it's happened in a while, so.
Yeah, I'm surprised 60 days was before. I don't know how you get it done in 60 days.
well, I know,
Oh,
well,
yeah, that
even
too.
May is.
If you did this every year,
That's
you wouldn't
true.
be rambling
Right.
around like we are right
Exactly.
now.
That's
So,
true,
Right,
yeah.
right, there's no precedence or anything for us to look at, so.
So is there, to go to our calendars again, we need a third meeting, right?
yes.
And so before,
Oh, sorry.
no, it's okay. I just wanted to make sure on the motion out there right now that I have is that you're proposing, based on looking at the comp data, proposing a survey that will go out to the commissioners and the mayor? Or do you want council members and the mayor?
And the mayor.
Yeah.
And for their perspectives of their role. And then I don't remember if there was anything else that you had a motion with that. I know it's a work products into,
Well, what you just stated there
Yeah.
is sufficient for us
okay,
to come together on April 8th.
okay.
Yeah.
So that's your motion. All right,
Yes.
perfect.
So it's been moved.
So who's moved it then?
I did,
Okay,
when, at the very beginning stages.
And
okay,
A second.
okay.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
But now you feel we need to change the public hearing,
Well, because
we won't have,
on the
Well-
8th is when I'm sorry, but it's on the 8th is when we're gonna say, yes, this is the survey we want sent out.
oh, that's right.
And then we have to get the
There's no way-
survey information back.
There's no way we could meet before that for a quick meeting just on the survey?
Uh,
that a
we could
thought?
explore it.
Okay.
And we could just do that, come together and vote on it,
So,
right?
that means that we would want to have that document as part of our meeting packet. And the meeting packet would be put up April 4th, maybe? But, and you're
So
gone.
checking here.
I mean, if we're,
Fourth, yeah, so the fourth has planning commission. So basically, we need at least 24 hours to post that a meeting is happening and put the notice out. As we work backwards, I am
you're gone until the
gone,
3rd sometime.
yeah, so from the 29th, which is the Friday, and then the first, second, third.
And Carol, you're gone Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday,
I am, and I'm,
and then you're gone Thursday, the 28th, is that it?
Yeah, and back Sunday.
Yeah, okay, so that whole week is out. Okay,
so then is the first a possibility?
So the first, second, and third are.
Oh, I'm sorry, I know that.
No, I know,
oh, that's
I'm
okay.
sorry.
Yeah, I just started looking at my calendar like, oh.
the 4th. Yes, I guess
We don't have to go any
Yeah.
faster than we're
No.
talking about.
because now that we're getting so close to it, right, on the 8th. We're not gonna get it back from them by then, if we send it out.
Well,
So we meet on the 8th, we review our survey and approve it. We're then able to send it out. It's when are we going to then have that back
If-
So
If
that
you
we-
ask them to give it back to you, oh, I'm sorry.
No, yeah.
That gives you basically the week to say, can you get that back? So that we would have that by the 15th to review as a group.
Okay.
So send it the 8th, send it back by the 12th. We don't have to have it in the agenda packet. We just have that agenda out there.
Okay, all right,
Be
All right.
okay. Or depending on how quickly they do get the information to us, we could, well, if you wanted to know on this, oh no, that would be fine. Sorry, I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
We could do that.
oh, that's right,
Back.
it's anonymous,
I
you
guess
really
the mayor
don't know,
won't- the
you
mayor
don't even
won't.
have a way to prompt somebody to
Yeah.
say, please finish it.
Well, you
Right.
could send
We
out
had
an
6
all
out of 8 are
council
here.
and say, yeah,
Two of
I've
you have
got,
it.
right, who are the two? And I would think they'd be motivated unless they're not in town, to finish, to get it out. It's in their interest to fill it out, so. But the mayor won't be anonymous, I just realized if we survey.
Well, I wouldn't do a separate one for just him. I think
Oh, that's
they should
true.
probably
That's
be
a,
in
that's a
one.
good point. Yeah. No, you're right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's
because
no
he is-
reason we can't,
That's right. I wasn't thinking of that.
his
but-
responses may make him less anonymous, but
Well, and he's so new to the job too, right? So, I mean, his hat may be more on this council, he's only had 3 months in the position. I don't know, but he's probably has a good idea of how much time he's
that could
already
be a
spent.
lifetime though.
Yeah, it could be. Okay, so then that means that we're reviewing the survey on the 8th, we're getting it back by the 15th. And so that's gonna be a regular commission meeting, not public comment. Right?
Yes.
And so now we have to pick a date for the public comment.
Or
And
public
then-
hearings, because they
The
didn't
public-
comment at any of them. just
And
so you
then
know.
I'm sorry, back to the 8th, we were changing the time
4 o'clock.
to 4 o'clock.
Yes.
And then on the 15th, we currently, I'm gonna take off public hearing
Correct.
to the 15th. And we can keep that at 5 if you would like.
15.
That's fine, I'm scowling because I didn't have it in here at 5.
That makes me feel better.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah, you're right, you're right,
5 o'clock.
it is 5 o'clock.
yeah,
So.
okay, so then that's
That was,
this is our meeting and then we have the public.
Yeah.
Whatever.
So on the 15th, we will have a recommendation for a public hearing.
you would put together, you would review the salary survey results and potentially with that and all the other data that we might have, you can
We'd be
decide
prepared for a public meeting.
to put together some type of draft in preparation for them. And then your public hearing is the next meeting potentially for us to schedule now. Or I guess that's new business. That's before I do that.
Okay.
What do we call it? I'm sorry, it's a public comment.
Public hearing.
It's a public hearing.
Yeah.
So we'll do that in our new business.
I should have just put that in there as a standing item, meeting schedule.
Well. I'm trying.
What might be helpful actually, as we are talking about what type of recommendation that you want to have ready for the public hearing. I can pull up those examples that are under our new business. Oh, sign me in. If you think it would be helpful to see. Sign.
There's supposed to be a space between A and B.
No?
No space, at sign.
I cannot get in. Oh, let me see that. Let me just show you this.
And if you want, you can email it to me. I can pull it up for the group.
Yes.
One, two, three, right? That's four. Oh, it's two. That's the problem. Huh? So.
So this is the one that Snoqualmie shared with me,
Okay,
that their commission put together last year. And this one was in a memo form. So Under
Other states in that.
chapter,
And they compared
7 meetings and a public meeting.
and they took Big Harbor and Lake Forest Park, see, they went beyond, and that's what I was saying, like,
yeah, and their comps very well could be different, because they're 50% and 50 below. It's most likely gonna be different than ours.
Right.
right,
Would you say it's supposed to be in Snoqualmie?
This is Snoqualmie.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, Snoqualmie's,
Much higher.
Yeah,
yeah, put it in a different bracket, which
Yeah.
is enough.
and whose was this, for what city?
Snoqualmie,
Oh, that was
Snoqualmie.
for Snoqualmie.
and so they reference, oh, I'm sorry. I can.
The duly elected or appointed mayor shall receive, so that's a full-time position.
If you divide it out, it's the monthly amount
Oh, okay.
here,
Oh, thank you.
Oh, this is a monthly amount.
mhm.
Right, but 3,000 times 12 is not.
No, but that's.
That's
55
Snow-
is Snohomish.
Snoqualmie.
Snoqualmie, sorry.
Snoqualmie's 55.
Snoqualmie is.
Right,
5,900 a month.
right.
And then in
That's-
24, they did a cost of living adjustment,
Mhm.
so that's what you're seeing reflected. And then they did for council members. $2,300. I don't know, Mayor, oh, we don't have this, Mayor Pro Tem.
Oh,
Mhm.
right. Have health insurance.
And this is something that you can send to us as well.
Yeah, yes, I didn't know if you guys wanted it or not, so I was like.
You
"Let me
see-
show."
Well, and we do, I mean, what are the other options? I mean, it seems like it's great to put it in memo form and send it to Matt when the recommendation comes. I mean, what would be?
Yeah. And then I have, this one is. Oh. So they gave me this one. And
Terrace, what's the name?
thank you. So I got page 1 second, so I'm gonna start down here. So they did it as a resolution. Code every 5 years. Conducted their meetings on these dates, public hearing on this date. Following 2 months review of public comment, they did the $100 effective for this, and then they did basically a COLA. Next year, resolution. Let me know if you want me to stop scrolling,
Mhm.
and then I'm gonna go back up for the second page. Motley Terrace.
Both for different reasons. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This one is. So this one was the meeting minutes.
Huh?
And who was present, and then discussion and recommendation. So here they did ground rules. I don't know. Again, lots of different ways to do it. If they voted to do a public comment, so this is all part of the meeting, and then they put their final recommendation here. This is a statement of salaries, not really sure what that means.
It's really funny, in the city of Redmond, the mayor fired the salary commission. They wanted to raise the salaries from, 9,000 a year to 111,000. Raise.
Huh.
I found an article.
Yeah,
Isn't that funny?
yeah,
Why would they? Yeah.
Those examples would be
Very helpful.
nice to be
Yeah.
Yeah.
able to look at.
I think this is the same one, yeah. Yeah, no, they had sent them to me, and I was like, oh, I'd kind of like to see the differences.
Yeah.
That'd be great
So
to
I-
get those. Okay, thank you.
And then I'll send you the reports I found, ones with more information.
Thank you, I'll put that all in the same email
Yeah.
then.
I think the more we can have, the better.
Agree.
Yeah, I know, I'm just trying to just provide info, so.
You're doing
Oh,
great.
yeah, no,
Trying
you're
to-
doing
Thank you
great.
so much.
Okay.
Yeah, no, and we don't, quite understand. We
Yeah,
haven't done
you're
this
helping us
before,
learn
So we're
Okay,
just.
all right.
Feeling our way around.
Let me know what you
Good.
need, and I'm
Yeah.
happy to help.
Yeah, so do we feel
So-
comfortable with these comparisons of just using these as comparisons? Parameters that we have?
Is this your industry though, as you typically go above and below? I mean,
Yeah.
it's a valid question.
Yeah,
When,
But, yeah,
if the cities have used it since forever, there's a reason for that.
yeah,
Yeah, so you do look at, and this is typically vetted by the lawyers, we use for the negotiations as well too, we go
Okay.
through them to make sure our comps still. Our comps, because some places grow, then they get too big for that. Where you see Kenmore's coming up kind of close, so maybe at some point, well, actually, don't take that back, not Kenmore, it was, what did I see on there? Felt like Terrace was pretty close, was that the one? No, so Palmy. So Palmy had a, maybe closer on their thing than I realized on their population.
Population, yeah.
But again, the sales tax revenue, I think, is a huge component of how are you gonna be funding
right.
the changes.
Yes.
So, yes, we look at that and we go to our legal team as well and ask for their support or help to figure out who the best comps are, and it's just more of a standard practice of looking at, like I said, the 50% up, 50% below.
And also, these are the same kind of government that we have?
Yeah.
Okay.
I couldn't say if, like, someone mentioned a pro tem mayor,
Yeah.
we don't have that. I don't know if they're, have the exact same number of council members, I didn't go into that level of
Okay.
detail, so I apologize that. is
I'm
not in there.
surprised at paying 3 and awful and Shoreline are paying. We're paying 3,000 and
Yeah.
Basel and Shoreline are paying less.
Remember, we're the only one with trees, so.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Good point.
So Donna, you asked if we wanted to expand. Did you have thoughts on that? I mean, would you like to add? Is that why you asked? the
Well, I was
question?
just concerned that we don't have many of the population and revenue similar
But I don't,
to compare.
but where would we, I mean, if this is off of a
If-
website?
So the cities are chosen based on, like, for example, with the negotiations, we'll work with our lawyer.
Okay.
And say which ones fall into that comparable.
But when I send you the reports,
Yeah.
some of them, they took the legal in our cities, but
Yeah.
then they also looked at, 10 comparable to population.
No matter
So-
where you were in the state, we just.
Yeah, I'd have to look, I don't know,
Yeah.
I don't think it specifically said, but it said, and we looked at,
Yeah,
so that's why it raised.
Yeah, and so one of the things I did before we were even installed, is I went out and I looked just to see who the comparable cities were.
Yeah.
And this is, the earliest I could find was the 2015 population. And every one of them that I like wrote down on the side as comparable to Lake Forest Park is on here. And everything else is, you know, different, if you will. So that's why I was wondering what you might be seeing, because it
I
feels
saw Gig Harbor, I thought they were close to us,
Gig Harbor, and you see, this is.
but I was looking at 2022 census.
Yeah, and I looked at King County and Snohomish, because I was thinking in terms of, people in our immediate region that might
Right,
have some of the
right.
same transportation issues and the corridor and whatnot, so. So anyway, that'd be interesting to see, so I guess once we see what you're forwarding on,
Yeah,
I'll take a look, okay?
for some reason I can't find those other cities right now.
So are we going back to when our third meeting is, sorry.
Oh,
Got a
right.
Calendar,
Let's-
can you tell?
Yeah, no, but
No.
we were gonna take that up in new business once
Oh,
we finish.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
so,
I
thank
missed
you.
that part.
So the survey, and then we got the motion and passed, and then we we were just looking at these, and so I will send those out to you. The examples, but then the question had come up, circling back to the compensation survey results from Donna. Are these the compensation, or the agencies that you want to use as comparables? So that was a new question back to old business. And I don't know, if we can move to meetings, or you guys can continue about the comps.
Well, you thought Gig Harbor was comparable. You said.
It's not on,
It's not on.
Gig Harbors,
Because
that's, they're not,
it's
they're not
not-
where it's at.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's not.
Well, actually, where's Gig Harbor?
Tacoma area,
But is it Kitsap County or is it Pierce?
Pierce.
It's interesting, that's not listed on this.
How about Thurston?
No, I don't have this.
I wouldn't imagine it's Thurston. Gig Harbor is just,
Heck, yeah.
See if I can.
Yeah, I would think it would be.
what county is Gig Harbor located
And
in?
I just remember that one is standing out. And looks like they
Pierce
used it
County.
along with Lake Forest
Pierce.
Park and some plumbing, so.
So, and again, this is from 2015, the Pierce County ones were Tacoma, Pacific, Milton, Auburn, and unincorporated. So if they've incorporated or since 2015, maybe, I mean, Gig Harbor's been around forever, so
Yeah,
I don't know why it's not on here.
they've had so much growth with the golf course and everything.
Right, right. And I don't know, I've seen them.
Okay, so we need to decide whether or not we're gonna go with what we have, or if we're gonna add to it.
And perhaps, and not to throw another
Rent.
talking point, if you wanted to close the loop on the outside consultant or not, or just leave that for now. And
So what did Snoqualmie do? Cause they had us on there.
they,
What cities did they
yeah, I'll
use?
just pull that back.
Cause we were on there.
Oh, where is this?
And I thought I saw Gig
Yeah.
Harbor.
Yeah,
They
Bonnie
use-
Lake, well,
No.
of course,
Camas and Edgewood
big,
and Arlington, and this, I mean, this is
It's
much, this is significantly larger than us.
Yeah.
Arlington, significant. We can't,
So they used, oh, they just said with a similar form of
Oh,
government.
look at that, oh, Camas.
Interesting.
yeah, down by there.
Yeah, it's,
Yeah.
they're spread out.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, they're really spread out. Huh. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. In that one, I mean, we could certainly stay at this point if we want. Guess we could change it if we had to. For some reason, I can't find that whole list that I had. I was just tooling around, playing around at night when I couldn't sleep or something. States, maybe that's what I need to say. I can't find it. Never show up. Results. Oh, there it is. Come on. So Gig Harbor has 12,892 people, square mile of 5.9, so they're a little bigger. And we've had 6.76 growth since 2020. And their household income average is 140,000. poverty rate of 5.98, which we had 4, and now we're at 3 something. So that just stood out to me as, because it's hard to find similar cities in terms of our size.
But they,
Now, I don't know what their,
but they probably have a higher sales tax base.
I don't know. This isn't telling me that, so
Yeah, it feels like they have more commercial.
they do, they do.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Doesn't it?
I don't know.
Seems,
No,
If you drive down there, you see a lot more businesses compared to us.
yes, not big.
well, 'cause
Yeah.
it's, yeah, but I don't know that they have big businesses.
Well, they make a couple bucks off of Chambers Bay,
Which Chambers Bay?
the golf course that's held the
Oh,
PGA
Oh, yeah.
I'm
championship.
gonna look if it's.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just, if we had that in our city, we might.
I didn't even realize that, I always thought the McDonald's at 145th was in Lake Forest
No.
Park.
The Taco Bell is,
I know it, but
Isn't it-
you know, nothing north of the Acacia, is that
Taco
right?
Bell is
It's
one of
just
our
like
highest.
Right.
That's a
revenues.
total.
Isn't that funny? No,
Segue.
we can't get to this conflict of interest by getting, I know one of the council members did look at cities supposedly our size. Would that be a conflict of interest
They,
to
my
send it to you?
understanding is they should not be involved in this because they're
Okay.
supposed to be acting as a separate.
Right.
Right,
So I would highly,
discourage them.
I would be, I don't know, and I would be very cautious, I guess, in my answer to that, because I think the
Well,
point of the
I would just-
commission is that you're supposed to
You're
be
not
working,
affected by.
you're as an
Sure.
independent.
Should be 100% separation, not even look like there's.
Right, but
Touch.
I just wondered if we could get the cities, maybe not the information, but just what did they look at? I'm just concerned that we don't have enough direct comparisons, I guess, but you guys are okay with it, I'm okay with it.
Well, outside of having an association that generates this information for us. No,
I mean, I can see, again, I'm not trying to say to go with
Yeah,
internal or external, but. I can see what raw data is out there for where this initially pulled from with AWC, if you wanted to
Oh.
at least have some more and, I guess, add a few in there to make it a larger expansion of lists of people. But again, I think you wanna make sure that if you're adding some and it's like, you don't wanna have like, it's so top heavy versus, you know, so that's one thing I would just keep in mind of where Lake Forest Park is, should be kind of in the middle of your comparables. And that you're picking
Mhm.
places that are representative, but you're having it in the middle and not necessarily that you've got like, here's everyone, they pay so much more. 10 places that are much bigger, you can influence data to match what you
Yeah,
want
yeah,
sometimes in that sense. Not that you're doing that, but
No,
I
I'm
can
right.
just try to pull some more that would be expanding that list to see if it makes sense for you as a group, to look at in there.
and if we have that by our April 15th meeting. And a little bit more
Or,
time, so
No, our
April
April 8th meeting,
April 8th is when we're doing
The serve.
the survey review.
right, but
You could
When
look at
we
that
could
as
look
well
at
if
that
you
as
would
well.
like,
Yeah, if you could do it that fast, that's what I'm saying.
yeah, and I don't know if I'd have everyone who has checked, verified their data, but I can at least start there and see what we get for the 8th.
Okay,
So you're looking at new cities of similar population, is that what you're thinking?
similar population, and if we could find similar tax revenues.
Because we're the lowest tier, right? That's something that I.
We're somewhat in the middle, because
But-
I'm looking at, I guess, it's hard to do it exactly, like, yeah,
Yeah.
on the sales tax, but on the population, we're kind of in that middle.
Well, we are in the middle on the population,
Yeah.
I can count it off, but with sales tax revenue, is that we're absolutely dead last.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
there is no, I mean, so if we're,
it's, that's the hard part, is we don't have the
Yeah.
same sales tax revenue,
Right.
coming
Yeah.
in that comparison, so I,
so then does it make sense to do, I mean, to your point, is
Mhm.
that population is one thing, but is the revenue more important for this discussion?
Yes,
Yeah.
So
Well,
then
I
if we're at
think
the
both.
bottom of this, then what we need is not population, but we need more representation of sales tax revenue.
That's a good point, putting it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because population is.
Right, because it's not significant to our final. Right, no, that's a good point. Yeah, makes sense to you, Michael?
mhm.
That makes sense to me.
But where do you go to get that data?
She's got the
Well,
ADJOURN.
she
I'm
was
gonna
say,
start with
See
AWC,
if
which
you
is
can
that.
find any more that's in our,
It's not like you gotta go to Commerce Department to find out.
The nice thing about the Association of Washington Cities is most agencies that we're probably looking for will participate in that survey, and if not, I'll also, like. Google it a little bit and also see if there might be some other things, like, they're referencing, for example, a few places there, I can use that as a.
yeah, I think that works for us ultimately, especially if we have to give them bad news.
But I think you're right, but I think it's also be able to stand and say, we have 1.6 million in revenue, and then the other way to spin that is. And we're still gonna give you an increase, but you
Well,
need to
right.
understand that you are being paid, highly paid
Exactly.
based on revenues.
Right.
And I'm not saying that that's where we're headed,
No,
I'm
no,
just
no.
saying that that
Yeah,
could be
yeah,
a way to
either
look
way,
at it, yeah.
Either way. It would just give us
Or-
some more.
How can we possibly afford this based on our
Well,
revenues
exactly.
or some such thing?
Yeah.
I made a note, so. I will-
Okay.
Yeah, if that's
Take
not
care
a
of
big, as
that.
big a deal for you.
No, I wanna make sure you guys get the info you need as much as I
Yeah.
can help with that, I will.
And I hate to go back to this, but I would really like the city to be able to uncover when the last time they officially raised the rates.
Yeah.
And that there had to have
Yeah.
been some sort of
Yeah.
stamp of approval for it all, and to not have that that's important to me, to at least have that information.
Yeah,
I don't
I have
yeah,
that, and I'm sorry
Okay.
that I did not have
Yeah,
that
no,
for
that's
this
fine.
meeting,
It's just-
but I certainly, hopefully
Hopefully it'll
we'll
be
get
there.
all of it,
Yeah.
put together.
How long have you been here?
Well, I started in, the end of 22, and then I had maternity leave in between there. And now officially back full-time here in January.
Okay.
wow,
Yeah,
so it's,
You're pretty new. Huh?
Yeah.
I just laughed because I know, and when I was in economic development.
no, sorry.
Economic development.
Oh.
We couldn't find stuff, there was stuff we couldn't find. So,
Yeah, so the
That's
HR person before me, she was here decades, so trying to figure out where things are.
Yeah,
The historical data that makes things take a little bit longer right now.
yeah. Well, I hear you. But I agree, Carol, that we should know that.
Yeah.
And because, yeah, I
That'll
mean,
be on our next
look at
agenda.
what windows only paying.
Okay,
So,
so
Move to
calendar,
new business, we need to find a replacement for our public hearing on April 15th to
Some other day.
a date that wouldn't be the 18th, 22nd, 23rd, or 25th.
oh yes, I think I'll put the calendar back up here. Just have the dates there. So.
And did we agree that the 15th is at 5 o'clock? I'm sorry. I feel like.
Yes,
Okay.
5 o'clock.
Okay.
Yeah,
But the
agreed,
8th is at
everybody agreed.
4. Okay,
The 8th we pushed to 4, so we
Okay.
can go to the rabbit box.
that's right. I knew there was something, okay.
Need a late one.
So no 22nd, 23rd, or 25th. So that leaves the 24th potential,
Oh, because someone was out of town that week, is that right?
of which,
Or you
April
said
24th.
April 22nd, that week?
But wait, something up there.
Well, there's a council
Oh.
meeting Oh, there's a council
That's
meeting
right.
on the 25th.
Yeah.
And the 22nd, there's a committee of the whole.
So the 24th is the only date open now.
Wednesday, the 24th. Looks like
Yeah,
it's open.
Wednesday the 24th. Yeah, it looks like it.
Works for me. For everybody else.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Is this our public comment
Yeah, that we'd want
or
to have
whatever
at
it's
7
supposed to be
o'clock.
calling it? Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, thank you.
So the 24th at 7 PM, public hearing.
And could we put that in the Shoreline News too?
That's what Matt suggested.
No, that's what I suggested,
Oh,
the
Yeah.
last meeting.
boy.
We don't do that as a standard for these commissions, do we?
I
For
don't
the
know.
short, no,
No,
they
but-
didn't list it.
He talked about putting it in the Seattle Times.
Right, but people here more read the Shoreline area news, so.
Would you like me though to hold off just in case on
please.
that? Okay.
Yes, yeah, I wouldn't put it now, but
Oh,
I'm just
yeah.
saying,
Okay,
Yeah, we have to be
Good.
certain that the date we're just now saying, April 24th,
Okay.
is actually the date.
yeah.
okay,
And then once we really know that,
Yeah.
then we can go public and
okay. Perfect, so let's see, add this, and then you would need another meeting, unless you wanna hold off, but you would need another meeting to follow the public meeting still as well, right?
to write our resolution or letter or whatever vehicle we do.
Mhm.
Okay?
Okay.
So I'm here the week of the 29th, and then I will be gone the 9th through the 23rd. Or maybe it's the 22nd of May, but we need, when's the next? Actually, when's the council meeting that we have to have this?
We're asking for May
31st.
31st.
Right.
Is
but
there a
Matt
council meeting?
needs-
But if we say it doesn't matter if the council meeting, if we say the 31st, I think we have. to-
May 9th would be a council meeting, or just depending on how far out we're going.
Well,
Well, after
Your
the
point is that-
31st, because we're, after the 31st is when our reports due.
Your recommendation
recommendation.
to.
Oh, to Matt.
To Matt,
That has, I keep forgetting it.
so-
has to be in
Matt
his
for us.
hands on May
Correct.
31st.
So the 23rd, if you're trying to have it get to the council by the 23rd meeting, then we would need to have it to him by that Friday before, which would be the 17th.
Back.
Right.
May.
Okay.
So we would need to meet.
So the week of Uh,
6th.
May 6th or
13.
And I'm gone, I'm out. in
Yeah,
Canada
and
the
I
13th.
will be gone the 13th.
So I'm available the 6th, 7th, and 8th of May, because we leave town the 9th.
So one other thing you could consider if you want back to old business would be to slightly modify your letter for maybe a June 30th or something,
Oh,
if you need to
maybe we
give
should.
yourself.
Maybe we
time.
should,
Doesn't mean you won't be done in May.
but it gives us some leeway. Because again, we don't have much to go on here. And why is ours different than others?
So-
Most of the other cities.
Do we expect our public hearing to be anything but
Well, there may be nobody,
question? Yeah,
there may be nobody. But I know. I've talked to public people. There's something. I said, well, come to our public hearing.
so on April 24th, at the conclusion of that meeting, if we found that it was for
There's no public
necessary
hearing.
for us to spend more time on
There
it,
won't be, yeah,
we'll be asking for an extension because we'll have to be spending more time.
Yeah, that's true.
considering we haven't seen anybody up to this point.
May 31st seems fine of it, but that means, we gotta meet that week that Carol said.
And that was the week of the sixth,
Six.
correct?
6 or 7, 6, 7 or 8 is when I'm in town.
And
Do the
so
6th or the
I
8th.
could do the sixth or the seventh, but then I'm at a conference starting on the 8th, so Monday or Tuesday.
How about Monday?
Monday the sixth,
Okay,
Okay,
and what time would you like to meet?
Oh, let me double check, sorry.
There was nothing there.
oh, yeah, double check.
Okay.
Okay, good.
So, Monday, May 6th.
That could be daytime hours too, because it means it's perfunctory on our report, actually, at that point.
Okay, 4 o'clock again.
Okay.
That sound good, you guys?
4 o'clock, yeah.
Yeah, I do like the idea of trying to get it on like 31st.
Okay,
Myself.
anything else to come before us, before we say
I don't think so.
motion to adjourn?
You know, first come through a lot. Next
There a
day.
second?
Second.
Second.
Oh.
Second, we gave us our first,
So our chair
said it.
said it. The motion and our second. Carol.
Donna can have it.
Whoever, yeah. And. 5:23.
We're adjourned.
Hey. Oh, and I think. Who are feeling their way out. Hi, thank you for your patience.
Yes, thank you.
Nice of you to